It's the Infectious Groove Podcast, part of the Odd Pods Media Network. Recorded from Detroit, Michigan, and Jacksonville, Florida. The Infectious Groove Podcast is your source for jammy jams, album reviews, and the best in-depth music discussion. Thanks for joining us. Now here are your hosts.
Well, hello. My name is Russ, and I am going to take you through this episode of the Infectious Groove Podcast, and we have a good one this week. We are going to do a totally epic cover battle over the song Last Kiss, and the versions that we're going to cover are going to be the two biggest hit versions of it that exist. The original, the first person to have a hit with it, J. Frank Wilson from 1964, and Pearl Jam, who had a hit with it in the late 90s, and still today is a very well-known version. We will be getting into that later. I do have a couple of quick things I want to cover. Number one, our YouTube channel continues to have great success. So thank you very, very much for that. In connection with that and everything we have going on here, we just recently put up a whole bunch of new merchandise for the first time in a very long time on our TeePublic store. So if you want to help support the show, you can do so by going to our TeePublic store and grabbing any number of wonderful new designs that we put up there. But back to the issue at hand, today's totally epic cover battle. And boy, do we have a treat for you, because we have guesting on our show today a person who's been a very successful podcaster in his own right for a long time, but has just recently, as of a couple of days before recording this episode, become part of the Odd Pods family. And that is Dave joining us from the Beer in Front podcast. Dave, welcome to the Infectious Groove Podcast.
Russ, thanks for having me. And yes, I am an owner of new Infectious Groove merch. And I wasn't sure if podcast etiquette is like a concert etiquette where you can't wear the podcast shirt on the podcast.
Yeah.
I didn't wear it, but thanks for having me, Russ.
I wear my own shirt on my own channel. I don't even know what the etiquette is for that. I don't think we've established what the etiquette is for that yet. But
that'll be a future show.
But I greatly appreciate it, though. In all honesty, you were one of the very first people to hit the TeePublic link when we put it up and order it. And if I do say so myself, I think the new designs look pretty snazzy in all colors. So, having said that, though, to quote Marty DeBurgi from the movie Spinal Tap, enough of my yakking. Dave, tell people what it is you do. I know that you cover a subject that's very near and dear to my heart and one of the most important issues facing the world today, and that is quality of beer. Tell people about it.
Yes, my show is Beer in Front. It came out in February 2020, so right before the pandemic. And I'm not a technical guy. I'm not a beer guy. I'm just your average person with a drinking problem in Chicago that likes to drink beer. And my show is mostly like old school beers. I know this is an audio show, but I have a Stroh's hat on, and, I'll talk about old school beers and, new beers that are really good as well. So that comes out weekly. And, as of yesterday, I believe, an official member of the Odd Pods family.
Yes, sir. And, when you talk about that, like in my opinion, like I think of myself as pretty well versed in music, but one of our aims on this show is to be like a music show for the common person. Like, I'm not here to sit and tell you how many different albums I know this person produced or whatever else. Like, we can mention that as an aside, but what we do on this show is just go, hey, you like music? So do we. Let's talk about it. And what you're talking about with beer is, you take an establishment, and I mean no disrespect with this, but you take an establishment like Total Wine. I can get confused and lost in a Total Wine real quick, and the intent of what they do is education. Well, I mean, besides selling alcohol, but, they try and do education, but like, even somebody like me is such a novice with it. It's like you said, I like to crack the beer, drink the beer, and go, good beer or not. It's a good resource for people to have. So if you're not already listening to Beer in Front, you definitely should be. As I've said on other episodes of this show recently, if you like what you hear from Dave, or if you just like beer, or if you're hitting it out of the park and you like beer and Dave, then just stop what you're doing, go subscribe to Beer in Front. And also, now I know I just recently added you to our family of channels on our YouTube channel, like on the Infectious Groove YouTube channel. And forgive me for asking this, but I don't know. Are you fairly new to the YouTube aspect of it, or have you been throwing up videos for a while too?
No, it's only I would throw one up once in a while, or I would just do an audiogram of the podcast, but it's only been within the last maybe 3 weeks that I've been putting up content, probably 5 days a week. I've had a lot of free time the last month. That actually ends tomorrow. So I'm going to try to do maybe 2 or 3 days a week where I'll do a quick video review of a beer, or like what I did the other day, just some really bad tasting potato chips.
Yeah, I left a comment on that particular video, and if you want to see Dave making some funny faces about some bad tasting potato chips, definitely go hit up his channel. But yeah, we do the same thing with our YouTube channel too. It's 5, 6, 7 minute quick hits, instead of an hour long podcast. And for me, it allows me to do more of what I don't do on this show, which is, like make straight. I mean, we do our jammy jams, but we don't make like straight recommendations about things or whatever else. And so it allows me to do that. And then like with you, not only, the visual art, being able to show labels or things along those lines, but also, like you said, something unique, like trying different foods. Or are you a hot sauce guy at all? Will you get into the hot sauce game on YouTube?
I'm not huge into it, but yeah, that might be something down the road. But on my channel, I've done like weird soda pops, stuff like that. So, we'll see how it goes. We'll see what kind of traction it gets, and maybe I'll branch out and do other things with it as well.
Right on. Okay, so you got not one, but two different places that you can subscribe to Dave and Beer in Front. So without that out of the way, Dave is going to sit in with me on this whole episode. We're going to do what we do, starting out with feedback.
Feedback, Joe.
Don't worry about that. Right. There's rock and roll be without feedback.
That is what the world wonders, David Gilmour. What would the world be without feedback? And I actually just recently put a clip of that on YouTube of what that's from, because I've had people ask, like, what is that? What is that feedback thing from? And it's from a Pink Floyd film called Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii. And you're never going to believe this, but David Gilmour and Roger Waters were arguing. And that's where
Really?
Yeah, I know. Hard as it may be to believe, that's what was happening in that clip. But anyways, having said that, we do have all different ways that you can leave us feedback, not the very least of which is our hotline, 313-364-9899. And we have a few people who leave us voicemails regularly, and I am a bad person and sometimes forget, even after I go through all the trouble of prepping the voicemail. So starting off our feedback, I'm going to go right with the latest piece of feedback that we have.
Hello, Infectious Groove Podcast. This is Seth giving you a call to give you some feedback. I was having real FOMO about your conversation last week of talking about the Blink-182 ticket, because I also was going through that struggle myself. And I just wanted to call in to let you know, well, first of all, Ticketmaster is ridiculous. And one thing I was kind of hoping that you might touch on in this podcast was about how ticket prices are going up, and that may affect people going to concerts. I don't know. I thought that might be interesting. But I wanted to say about the Blink-182 concert, I was shocked and appalled that a pit ticket would cost $700, and that was a reasonably priced ticket apparently, because they were going all the way up to like $1,000. But what I did was I went to StubHub, and I was able to procure a floor seat for much less than that, for $230. I don't know if I just got like the nice reseller or what was going on, but I was just like felt like I got a huge deal. My other comment I wanted to bring up is that Russ clearly does not like people that take videos at concerts. I don't know if it's just me, but I have a bad memory. I understand what you're saying about being in the moment, but I have forgotten so many moments, like of many concerts that I've gone to. And I do enjoy to be able to watch back the videos and stuff like that. And I do watch them again, even if nobody else does, Russ. I do. And then I don't know, I just really like to relive the memories and stuff like that, because there are a lot of concerts that I went to when I was younger, like in the, 90s and stuff like that, that I wish I could remember more of. So I also am not looking at the screen while I'm recording it. I'm looking at the people doing the art, but I don't know if that gives me an exemption or what, but that's my theory. And I don't know. I guess we'll hear your response to that next week. So I'll stop yammering on, and can't wait to hear the rest of this week's totally epic cover battle, which I love the original, and I knew the original before Pearl Jam, just saying. Anyways, Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Seth with a little bit of music snob there at the end. Oh, and I knew the original before Pearl Jam. I mean, a couple of points that
You probably knew the girl.
Right, yeah. Couple of points I want to touch on, and then I'll throw it to you, Dave, for your thoughts on that. Number one, relatively speaking, I do understand that $200 is less than $700, but my God, what kind of world have we turned into where $200 is reasonable for a concert ticket? You have that. And then I totally agree with Seth that I do think that the complete and total atrocity that has become concert ticket prices, I have no doubt in my mind that that's why we're seeing lower attendance. I think it's got far more to do with that than it does what occurred in the world a couple of years back. And then regarding video at concerts. So yes, I am old man yelling for people to get off my lawn about that. And to clarify on that, I don't mind if we're going to go see Stevie Nicks in between the time this episode is recorded and the time that it's out. If Landslide is your all-time favorite song or Gypsy or whatever else, like, man, take a couple of minute clip of it or whatever else. But the problem I have, and maybe it's just me, but there's a lot of people, man, who are like filming whole shows, and they're holding up their phone in front of other people. And like Seth said, see, that's my thing too. I have taken video at shows, but I hold the camera down like at my chest or lower, like, cause I don't really care about how well the video is. I'm not trying to shoot a film here, but I want to see the artist live. And I don't see people doing that, man. Like, people don't pay attention to what the artist is doing on stage. They're watching there. And it's like, at that point, you might as well sit at home, turn the lights off, and just watch somebody else's video on YouTube.
Yeah. And save the $200.
Yeah. And save the reasonable sum of $200.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you agree though? Do you think that the outrageous ticket prices is part of why we're saying, like, for example, you had told me that you wanted to go see Springsteen, but you probably won't because of the outrageous prices.
Yeah, he didn't announce anything for Chicago or the initial round when he tours. But just hearing stories of people that are bought tickets to see him in Dallas and other places, it's crazy. And I don't know, maybe it's just getting older. Maybe it's the pandemic, being away from live shows for a couple years. I don't know if I have 500 to 1,000 in me for, one night.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to do that anymore. And it's probably a combination of both. One, I'm getting older. Two, I just don't want to spend that money, especially on an artist who I love, but I've seen him 9 times before. Mm-hmm. He's in his 70s now. I'm sure I've seen him at a better time in his career.
Yeah. And that's a lot of what happens with me is exactly that. I have artists that I've seen 10, 20, 15, 25 times. And it's like, I'm good. I don't have to pay at all, let alone what you're trying to charge, Mm-hmm. So let me get into some written feedback that we got from Twitter and Facebook and various other places. Sean and Chris write in and say, we got behind, but the season premiere was great. One quick question. Did you replace Michelle with an android? This is not the Michelle that we know. And that was regarding our season premiere, where Michelle brought a whole bunch of really well thought out points on all 3 versions of To Make You Feel My Love. And you'll hear through some of the other feedback that ended up throwing the audience to a certain extent, that they were not prepared for that from Michelle. Sean and Chris go on to write, I was not even aware that Shinedown released a new album. I've grown reliant on you guys for new musics and favorites, so much that I didn't even know that they had released new music. Keep up the good work. And that was when our friend Dayton joined us from the Docking Bay 77 podcast, and one of his jammy jams was the latest Shinedown record, which I don't believe I knew was a thing either, but he talked it up quite a bit. So we do like that people rely on us for new music to listen to. Garrett, who is from the Ever Trending Story podcast, who is also a new member of the Odd Pods Media Network now, says, great discussion on the current concert climate. I'm totally fine with each artist doing what they feel is right, and concert goers should be okay with that too. And I have to assume, Dave, you feel the same way. Like we talked about a little bit, when we went to see Weird Al, there was some scuttlebutt around about, I can't believe we have to wear masks for the meet and greet. And it's like, well, you're not Weird Al if you're not the one putting on this whole shindig,
Yeah. Putting on a tour isn't cheap. So, I mean, if he wants to be, safe to avoid canceling a show or postponing, I don't have a problem with that one bit.
Yeah, me either. Lastly, Chicago Mike writes into us and says, my first show back was June of 2021. I attended 5 shows that summer, all outside, 3 different size venues between 8,000, 20,000, and 40,000 people. 2 shows at Wrigley Field required Vax cards, and you got a wristband after vaccination. My first indoor show was in September, a small theater, 2,000-seater, where masks were required, but nothing was enforced. January of 2022, I went to 2 outdoor shows of about 3,500 people and masks were required, but again, not enforced. Saw Eddie Vedder in February of 2022 with about 4,000 people, and that was the only show where masks were required, and the ushers had flashlights and signs enforcing the rules. Since then, I've been mostly to outdoor shows with 2 music festivals that felt like normal. 2 things I've noticed is that there's no more pat-downs since everywhere has metal detectors and the clear bag policy. Bags are smaller and clear is recommended. So it just sounds to me like Mike kind of went through the gambit of everything that could possibly be enforced or not enforced at a show. And where do you stand on that, Dave? Have you been to any live events since everything opened back up?
Actually, I haven't. The only live event that I've been to was a comedy show, Mike Birbiglia.
Oh, I saw him in LA a few years ago.
Yeah, that was a mask on. This was a few months ago. It was fine. I didn't carry anything with me, so it was no big deal.
Yeah.
But, they did the whole, my wife's purse, all that stuff. But that was a mask on show, and it wasn't a problem for me. I have to wear a mask at work, so I'm used to it. 8 hours a day.
Right.
Another hour and a half for a comedy show is not a big deal for me.
Yeah, not a big deal at all. Yeah. And on a side note, Mike Birbiglia is one of my favorite comics. Man, that guy is good.
Yeah.
I dig him. All right, that is the feedback. I told you before how you can get at us on any social media or call our hotline at 313-364-9899 and leave us a voicemail. Now we're going to go on to arguably the best segment in the history of podcasting, Our Jammies. This is the segment where we talk about what we've been listening to and why. And this time around, Dave, I'm going to let you go first because you are the guest, and tell us the songs or artists you've been listening to and why.
I have like 3 songs, and the first one is weird. Like my wife and I, we were out at the store the other day, and they have the music playing on in the background, and it was Bonnie Raitt, who has a very distinctive voice, a very distinctive guitar style.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a song she did with the Blind Boys of Alabama. And I'm listening and I'm like, I know this song, but what song is it? Because it was a cover. And she did a cover of Richard Thompson's When the Spell is Broken, which is just one of my favorite songs. It's depressing as hell, which this whole episode is going to be with Last Kiss.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Yeah, you might as well set the tone.
Yeah. But I love that song. So, I went back and listened to the version with Bonnie Raitt and the Blind Boys of Alabama, but I just went back and was listening to the Richard Thompson version from Across a Crowded Room, which is just a phenomenal song. Like I said, it's depressing as hell if you've ever gone through a breakup, a divorce, or anything like that. But a phenomenal song. So that's one of the jammy jams I've been listening to.
That is not too shabby. And like you said, it kind of sets the tone for the episode as well. On a total side note, we talk a great deal on this show, or have in the past, about one of our favorite newer acts, the Lone Bellow. And they have a song that I absolutely adore called Watch Over Us that was already more of a hymn than a song, and they did a version with the Blind Boys a few years back that just changes it to a whole different level. So
yeah.
What else you got?
This was one, and I don't know if you've done a show on this, on how earworms and how like songs will pop in your head, but last week I was watching Ocean's 13 again. It was one of those, I need to take a nap, let me just put this on as mindless something and I'll fall asleep to it.
11 and 13. I can do that with Oceans 11 and 13. Yeah. I say I've never actually seen 12.
Okay. Yeah. But at the end of 13, they're both, in the Las Vegas airport saying to each other, I'll see you when I see you, which all of a sudden that line popped in my head, which brought me to a Frank Turner song called Oh Brother from one of my favorite records of all time, Tape Deck Heart. So I went back and revisited Oh Brother and then was listening to that whole record a lot this week.
That's rad. And yeah, I'm sure you've heard us say this on the show before, you and the listeners, like, it doesn't matter where you get inspired to listen to something, like even that, a line in a movie inspires you to revisit a record that you love a great deal. What else you got? You got at least one more for us?
I do. And, I posted it yesterday. I posted the video on it. I was just, scrolling through Spotify, and it was like, oh, here's a new song from an artist that you follow. So Lucero has a new song out, which is great. And it's called One Last FU, and a terrific song. Ben Nichols has such a great voice. It's just one of the most unique voices in music.
Mhm.
Like, you could tell he's easily a 2-pack a day smoker, and there's no filter on
Right.
Ben Nichols cigarettes. He's smoking Lucky Strikes or Paul Malls because he has that raspy voice, but his voice sounds great on the new song One Last FU.
Right on. And it's funny, you posted about that on Instagram and I commented on it. We have a Patreon supporter of our show who is a huge Lucero fan. And I don't know why, but I think this is the first time we've ever mentioned the band on the show. Maybe somewhere along the line, but I couldn't agree more with your assessment. I haven't heard the new cut yet, but as far as his voice goes, yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, he's just a great voice. So, I went back, listened to some of their old stuff today too, but that new track I've probably heard 5 or 6 times in the last 24 hours. I like it that much.
Right on. As far as my jammy jams go, I have 3 that are 2 are from the mid to late 80s. And then one is a little bit before that. One is this came to me through, and I've tweeted about this quite a bit, but I listen heavily to, there's an iHeart radio station that plays the nothing but Casey Kasem American Top 40 countdowns from the 70s and 80s. And it's the complete uncut countdowns, and they run them 24 hours a day. And just 2 days ago, he was doing a countdown from 88 or 89 or whatever, and there's a song called Breakout by a Britpop band called Swing Out Sister, and it's such a great song. Like, I would go so far as to call it way ahead of its time for when it came out. Now you would hear it and you would think it sounds a little dated, but there's a lot of British pop in the 90s that took inspiration from that sound. It's not that I didn't want to listen to that song, but it just hadn't crossed my desk in a long time. The other day I heard Casey setting up the thing and the intro of the song was playing in the background. I literally ran out of the room and turned the volume up on my phone, and I was like, oh, everybody's got to hear this. Everybody in the house has got to hear this. What a great song. The other thing that I was reminded of because of Twitter conversations is the great drumming of Kenny Aronoff, who has drummed on so many fantastic cuts. And if you're going to talk about Kenny Aronoff, the first thing that comes up is generally the drum break in Jack and Diane by John Cougar Mellencamp. So Kenny Aronoff's amazing drum break, notwithstanding, that song on its own is just such a great cut. And one that I hadn't really listened to in quite a while. So that's been in heavy rotation. Lastly, there's something that got released finally a couple of months ago after 4 years of infighting stopping it from being released. And that is the brand new 2022 release of the Animals 2018 remix by Pink Floyd. And this remix was literally done in the year 2018, and then the band fought about it for 4 years until it was finally released. But I'm very grateful that it was released. Now, Dave, I know you like Floyd, but do you know Animals real well?
I know it. I don't know it as well as you, but it's just like the whole Gilmore and Roger Waters bickering. It's just weird, like them and Oasis and the Kinks and the Black Crowes. I mean, Gilmore and Waters aren't brothers like the other groups are, but it's just, can't you just get along?
Well, my thing is, I do get it to some extent when you're in your creative prime, like when you're young, and not the least of which is lawyers and interviews and agents and everybody getting in your ear and telling you you're the greatest thing in the world. And so you start to believe you're the greatest thing in the world. The problem that I have is that David Gilmour and Roger Waters are both in their late 70s. Please stop arguing now, but having said that, they did a magnificent job on this remaster. And Animals is one of those records that me and a lot of other Pink Floyd fans, when this remix was in limbo for 4 years, were saying, yeah, but Animals sounds fine anyways. Who really cares if we get this remix? And then you hear it and you're like, my God almighty, thank God we got this remix. Yeah. It's just very, very, very well done. It's hard to describe, but the band, the way it's mixed now, it sounds like the band is playing more as a band, like instead of It's exactly the same instrumentation. Nothing's been re-recorded, but it's remixed in a way to where it sounds more like them playing together as a cohesive unit other than what it was, which was four guys just not caring about being there at all when that was recorded. So anyways, the tracks on that record are extremely lengthy. There's only 5 songs across a 44-minute album. And 2 of the songs that begin and end the album are like 1.5 minutes each. So the 3 in the middle are between 12 and 20 minutes long, but they're absolutely fantastic. Let me put it this way. Going forward, I don't see myself ever listening to the original mix ever again. And if you had asked me the day before it came out, if it would even matter, I would have been like, this isn't going to be that big of a deal. And then it was.
I'll definitely have to check it out. I think that's one thing like where we differ on is, and I could be wrong, this is just what I'm assuming based on seeing you on social media. You are more of a Team Waters guy. And I think I know I'm more of a Team David Gilmour guy.
Well, okay, so here's, and we could do a whole episode on this. Here's the thing. I think that in the grand scheme of things, Roger Waters is more important to Pink Floyd's story because without him, you don't have the ideas, even the germ of the idea for Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals, The Wall, right? However, I totally recognize the fact that those pieces would not be anywhere near as good as they are without Dave doing what he did on those cuts. And the big issue now between the two is Dave feels like he never got the credit he deserved from Roger, and Roger feels like he never got anywhere near the respect he deserved from Dave. And I get that when you're 40. I don't understand that when you're 75 plus. You really want to spend your remaining years on this planet arguing with a guy you've been arguing with for 40 years?
Yeah, and even, they temporarily put their differences aside. That one concert, I forget what the benefit was, where they came out to this club and did, to know him is to love him, things like that. It's just like, just move on, make money. You're not poor as it is. And like we mentioned with concert prices, could you imagine a Pink Floyd ticket right now with them together again? It would be easily $1,000 a night.
Oh yeah, that's conservative. That would be the reasonable ticket price. I will, and I'll put a cap on this so I can take us to break and we can get into this the main topic. But my favorite thing, and this has got to be the most spiteful thing in the history of music about Roger Waters and his solo shows, is any posters, merchandise, t-shirts, coffee mugs, anything you buy at a Roger Waters concert says in bigger letters than his name, it says the creative genius of Pink Floyd. Like Roger's just like, I'm the guy. And you're like, yeah, we know. Like we just play the Pink Floyd songs, but it just cracks me up that that's like featured on every single thing that he sells. He's like, oh, you're going to walk around and tell people I'm a genius.
Yeah.
So having said that, we have had a good time discussing the feedback that we got from everybody and the Jammy Jams, of course. And now we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to get into what Dave said I feel is one of the more sad songs I've ever heard in my entire life. The song Last Kiss. We're going to discuss 2 different versions of the song, talk about a little history of it. And then Dave and I will tell you what we like, what we don't like, and which one we like the most. You're listening to the Infectious Groove Podcast on the Odd Pods Media Network.
Once upon a time.
Boring.
It was the best of times. It was the worst.
You got that right.
What's your problem?
We want new stories.
Hi, it's Frankie.
And Garrett. And we host the Ever Trending Story, a weekly podcast where we bring to life a fictional story created by our own minds and some of the hottest, craziest trends from the internet.
Find us wherever you download podcasts, and be sure to join the fun on social media at EverTrendingPod.
Hi, I'm Shannon.
I'm Jamie.
We're Married with Television, marriedwithtv.com. We are a couple of Hollywood normies on the outskirts of the film and TV industry, and we talk about our favorite TV shows, music, and movies, and sometimes they talk back to us.
Sometimes they do.
Our podcast is Married with Television, one word, on Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, and SoundCloud.
Possibly Amazon soon. And we are a proud member of the Odd Pods Media Network.
Married with TV.
MarriedWithTV.com.
We are back. I am Russ, representing the Infectious Groove podcast, and I have along with me this week Dave, representing his very own Beer in Front podcast. And Dave has done many, many music episodes over time on his episode. If you watch anything to do with him on social media, Dave knows his way around a song, which is why we have asked him to come and sit in with us for a totally epic cover battle. And usually at the start of these cover battles, I will go through a little bit of the original version of the song and a little bit of facts about the cover of the song. And on this one, it is worth noting that the version that we have up against Pearl Jam in this is actually not the original version of the song, but it is the one that charted and would have been most well known, as far as I can tell, prior to Pearl Jam recording this. And also, even though resident music hipster Seth from the first half of the show said that he knew this song before Pearl Jam did the song, many, many, many people, I don't know, Dave, how you are in this, like many people that I know had no idea that Pearl Jam didn't write this. Has that been your experience that you have to kind of be the guy to tell people that it's a cover?
No, because I'm older. I'm 55, so I don't remember it when the song first came out. But I was familiar with the song from oldies stations, things like that. So I definitely knew the song before Pearl Jam.
Right on. The original version was recorded and released by a gentleman named Wayne Cochran, who, before we went on to record this episode, Dave was so kind as to alert me to what I'm calling Wayne's hair situation. And if you're on your phone listening to this on some podcast app or something, do yourself a favor and just Google Wayne Cochran right quick and take in the glory that is his hair, as Dave just had me do a couple of minutes ago. Wayne Cochran recorded the song in 1961, but it did not chart at all. And then a couple of years later, it was picked up by J. Frank Wilson and the Cavaliers, and it was released in September of 1964. This time around, Last Kiss spent 15 weeks on the charts. It was peaking. The peak position that it hit on the Billboard 100 was number 2. Side note, it was kept out of the number 1 spot by Baby Love by the Supremes, which is kind of interesting to me, being from Detroit. The story of Motown is that Berry Gordy was bound and determined to only put out positive music, and he was convinced that that's what people wanted to hear and hear more of. So it's interesting that this tragic song was kept out of the number 1 spot by a happy-go-lucky Motown song. This was the first and only number 1 hit for J. Frank Wilson and the Cavaliers, and ironically, the band was involved in a fatal car crash on tour very shortly after the release for this record. So that's one of those Jan and Dean type situations, I guess, Yeah. Moving on ahead to Pearl Jam. Eddie Vedder, lead singer of Pearl Jam, found the single for Last Kiss at an antique mall, and he loved it. And me personally, I'm pretty thankful that he did, because Pearl Jam started covering it late in their tour in 1998. They actually recorded the version that everyone knows at a sound check, not in a recording studio. They spent a little amount of money to get it mixed, and it was originally only supposed to be released as the Christmas single for their fan club, the 10 Club. So that's all. It was never meant to be a big hit release single or anything. Later on, it was included on a B-sides collection that the Pearl Jam released called Lost Dogs. But along the way, between it being done at the shows occasionally and released as a 10 single, and before it ended up on Lost Dogs, the contractually obligated B-sides collection that all bands have to do. Before that, it got picked up by radio and just became a huge hit. This was, of course, in the era where people started dwindling more away from buying singles and whatnot. Plus, this wasn't something that was released on a 45 or a CD single on its own, but it was massive. It was just, it was, in my opinion, it's probably the biggest hit Pearl Jam had in the late 90s.
I think it's their biggest hit ever. I went to number 2 as well on the charts. So this had to be their biggest. I don't recall any of their stuff off of 10 being a chart topper. I mean, they're all great songs, but they weren't Billboard pop charting hits. And that was a number 2 hit as well. And I think Pearl Jam's was like this huge record in Australia, of all places, where it just sold record after record in Australia. I think it was number 1 there.
Yeah, and it's we'll get into the ins and outs of what we like and what we don't like, but it's one of those songs that I think just struck a chord with people because the simplicity of it. At the time, we were hearing so much rap rock and like heavy duty new like Linkin Park and whatnot. Like a lot of people were experimenting, and then here comes this 4-chord song, with a little lead on it, little drums, little bass, and a haunting vocal, and then you end up with people gravitating toward that. So at least in Australia, Barry Gordy was wrong. People do want to listen to sad songs about tragedy. So we always get into what we do like to talk about first is what we like about each version. So as far as the original goes, Dave, I'm going to throw it to you first on this, or not the original, but the J. Frank Wilson and the Cavaliers edition. What do you like about it?
Nothing. That could be the Jay Franklin version, one of my least favorite songs ever. There's not much about that record, from the bass line and the beginning drum parts to the backing vocals, even to his vocals. It's too peppy for such a sad song. And I even thought that as a kid, like, I don't know about this. So yeah, there's really not a lot that I like about the original. And he even makes it sound pathetic. Like, he'd be the type of guy who goes on a date and on a first date changes his Facebook status to in a relationship. You're in your 20s. You borrowed your dad's car. So there's not much I like about the original. You weren't expecting that, Ross.
No, but I do. I have some notes that I feel might lead to a little bit more nuanced discussion. It's funny that you say that. I'm laughing at myself as well, because I've not with this particular week, but when I write my notes out for these episodes for original versions of songs before, I've actually typed the phrase "not a goddamn thing." So here, my notes start with this, and this is the most wishy-washy thing I've ever said on the show, is I don't dislike anything about the original, but I don't love it either. Like it's just there. My second thing that I like about the original is that I love that Eddie Vedder liked it.
Yeah.
Like super happy about that. And then my next line, I'm going to read this right out of my notes, because this will hit right what you were just talking about. The vibe of this song is far different from the messaging. This reminds me way too much of a Buddy Holly upbeat song.
Yes. It reminded me of this upbeat early 60s pre-Beatlemania, early rock and roll vibe. Like I could see like a 96 Tears keyboard going in the middle of this song. It just, the whole production just seemed off for the content of the lyrics.
Yeah. And maybe it's at the time there was a lot of hit songs around tragedy, Leader of the Pack, Dead Man's Curve, that type of thing. And I would argue Leader of the Pack had a far more somber tone to it, but maybe that was the idea at the time, was just like, I don't know, let's just make it upbeat and see if no one, because there's a ton of songs out there that don't mean what you think they mean. You know what I mean? Right. And maybe that was the idea on this. I don't know. Let's put a peppy dance beat behind it and hope people don't notice that she died. So having said that, we'll move on to the cover, which hopefully your answer is not the same with the cover as the original version or the J. Frank Wilson version. But with me, I have very simple notes on this. What do you like about the cover? The first thing I typed is the word everything in all caps with a period and an exclamation point, and then several periods after that. And then I wrote vocals, production, vocals again, guitar tone, vocals again, drum sound. The vocals are amazing. Everything, period. I love this cover. I think it's fantastic.
It's such a great song, and it's a total night and day with Pearl Jam doing it. And I remember the first time I'm hearing, and the first time I'm like, wait, they're doing this song? And I'm thinking to myself, I hate this song. But listening to it, like, totally different vibe. Eddie Vedder's vocals are so great on this. And he sells the song, he sells the pain, which, J. Frank Wilson, to me, just couldn't do.
Right. And I don't even know, you bring up an interesting point. I don't know if it's not couldn't or wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it was like, if he couldn't feel the pain that way. Look, Eddie Vedder, to me, sings this song in a way that if you were a casual Pearl Jam fan at best, you might Google and be like, did Eddie Vedder's wife or girlfriend die in a car wreck? Like this dude, and you've heard me talk on the show before. I'm a huge fan of like Garth Brooks and Elvis Presley, who people say aren't real artists because they didn't write their own songs, right? Well, I would tell you to listen to, We Shall Be Free by Garth Brooks or Elvis's rendition of Bridge Over Troubled Water. And you tell me if that person's an artist or not based off of their ability to convey the song, right? And you listen to what Eddie Vedder does with this song. I bet you could play this song for someone who's never heard it before, and they might say to you, did his wife die? Or, you know what I mean? Like, they would just be convinced that this happened to him.
Yeah, and like going back to what you were saying about like people like Elvis, stuff like that. Elton John doesn't write his own lyrics, and I would, I'd fist fight somebody right now who said that, Elton John can't sell his song.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody like Rod Stewart. Rod Stewart's got such an incredible voice. He could sell any song that's out there, and Eddie Vedder sold this song. He made this song his own.
Mm-hmm.
He took it away from Wayne Cochran and J. Frank Wilson.
Yeah, and that's why I always say that about, like, I always hone in on Bridge Over Troubled Water, but I feel that way about Elvis and Garth Brooks, where I don't care who wrote or even had hits with, like Friends in Low Places is obviously a Garth Brooks song, but there was a commercially released version of that song prior to Garth doing it. And I challenge anybody to tell me how much they love that version, because Garth took that song and made it his own. And it's not just, now I did in my notes mention Eddie Vedder's vocals 4 times, but it's not just Eddie's vocal on this, man. This song sounds like that, like the music is so subjective, and I don't want to put my vision in someone else's head. But for this, to me, when I hear this song, because of the sparse production on it, the echoey guitars, the echoey drums, to me, I see a person in a waiting room with the slow motion world happening around them, like while they're realizing what happened. You can't reinterpret a song much better than they did with the production. Like, even like the drums, the way it just echoes, it just sounds like something awful and somber has occurred.
Yeah, it's just the whole production, and it's minimal production. It was just, a sound check, and it was just one of those times, and we're fortunate that somebody hit record and let's record this, and it was perfect. I don't think the song would be anywhere as good as if they went into a studio and let's try to recapture what we had from the sound check. It wouldn't have been the same. Mm-hmm. This is the perfect version.
Now, one more thing I want to touch on Eddie's vocals, and then I'm going to pass it over to you for you to list off what I assume is going to be Eddie's vocals and other things for what you like. Man, the way this guy wails on the outro, you've got that light, almost a, like I say, I guess that's what brought that hospital visual to me, like the light, almost crying type falsetto that he does at the end, as if he's waiting for the news. And then the wailing that he does to me as if it's been confirmed the end result of this accident. I mean, it's just, Eddie Vedder takes a lot of crap and for the mumbling and his attitude and so on. But I will tell you what, I will take whatever, I don't know, whatever bad we've had to deal with Eddie Vedder for a guy who can accomplish what he did with this vocal. All else is forgiven, in my opinion. So having said that, what do you like about the version, the Pearl Jam version?
The vocals, obviously, the minimalist production. It's almost like a Rick Rubin with a Johnny Cash and Neil Diamond, how it was just stripped down to bare bones. And it just, in my eyes, it's perfect. It made a lousy song great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, there's nothing I could fault with it. I loved everything about this record.
Shout out to the tempo, by the way, not just the drumming sound, but the tempo. It's very, like you said, we talked about it with the original. It's like, get off your floor toms, man. This is not a rumbly, this is a serious situation, a somber event that's occurred, and the tempo on it is perfect. It is just, it gives you time to take in, like, for example, I lost my love, my life that night, and the ga-ga, da, like, gives you a second to think about that. Like, damn it, like that just occurred. So I think we're both speaking the same language on the star of this show is Eddie Vedder's ability to reinterpret this song the way I think that it was meant when it was written.
Yeah, it's not a happy song, and the J. Frank Wilson with like even like the backing chorus, like the whoa 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 part, just like what is this doing here? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But the way that Eddie delivered it was powerful. Like, you felt like he's crying out to a higher power
Yeah.
or whatever when he's wailing that.
Yeah. And it's like I said, what do you like about the original? I really liked it. Eddie liked it. Because we ended up.
I'm glad he was looking through the bargain bin and like, 99 cents, I'll buy this.
Yeah, real glad about that. As we go into these last two questions that we have, I feel like I know the answer to both of the last two questions that we ask, but I'm going to ask you anyways, Dave. First up, which is your favorite and why? Now, the audience is probably on the edge of their seat right now. Well, what is Dave going to say? Is it going to be J. Frank Wilson? Because he did go on about how much he loved the J. Frank Wilson version. But which of the two versions of this song is your favorite and why?
My favorite version would be Pearl Jam.
Oh, that's a shock.
Everything I liked about it is better. I went back and listened to the original Frank Cochran version. I'm like, well, let me hear, Wayne Cochran.
Mm-hmm.
What, did he do? And he did like 4 different versions trying to I guess just hit magic, and it never worked. But no, definitely just Pearl Jam. Their version was better than the original Wayne Cochran, than the big hit from J. Frank Wilson.
Yeah, my answer that I wrote down was Pearl Jam and By a Country Mile. And I used to think, geez, I don't know, probably as recent as 10 years ago, I used to think, it's probably just because I heard the Pearl Jam version first, because that happens sometimes. You hear the cover first and that's the version but like you said, I went back and really intently listened to the J. Frank Wilson version, and I did listen to at least a couple of different versions by Wayne Cochran, and nobody does this song like Pearl Jam does this song.
Well, it's funny when you got a hold of me last week asking if I could come on, and at the time I was running errands. I was over by my mom's. So driving home, I'm like, all right, well, let me start listening to this song. So, hey, Siri, can you play Last Kiss? And it was Taylor Swift. So I'm like, no, Siri, can you play Last Kiss by Pearl Jam?
And that's funny. And now I'm sorry to sound ignorant on my own show here, but did she do a cover of that, or does she have a completely different song titled Last Kiss?
A completely different song, but
okay.
I'm like, okay, just play Last Kiss. And all of a sudden, okay, here's, my Siri speaks with a British accent, but
Siri was
okay, here's Taylor Swift.
Yeah, Siri was like,
huh?
In fairness, everybody in the world is listening to Taylor Swift right now because of the new record. So Siri probably just assumed that was going to happen. So another question that we ask, and here again, I feel like I know your answer, but I'm going to ask you anyways. Which version of it would you recommend and why? And actually, you know what? I'm going to put a twist on this too. And I say, would you even say, hey, you should listen to the originals for good, if nothing else, to know how good you kids have it with the Pearl Jam cover? Or
I think I would tell people to listen to both and go to the original first and hear how good, maybe people would appreciate more how good the Pearl Jam version is compared to the J. Frank Wilson.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because my answer to this, which version would you recommend, is I would insert the caveat of saying to someone, well, have you ever heard Peggy Sue by Buddy Holly? And if they say yes, I'll be like, okay, then skip the original. But you bring up a great point, though. And I think people don't think about that a lot when they talk about covers, is you should definitely listen to the original, especially where Last Kiss is concerned, to see what you're talking about, to see exactly how good you do have it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a magnificent version. And if nothing else, the reason I would put my stamp of approval on the Pearl Jam version is, and I labored this point extensively, but Eddie Vedder gets this song. He gets this song. And okay, so what you said, I remember the original playing on oldie stations too. We had an AM oldie station in Detroit that my mom used to listen to a ton when I was a kid. I don't ever see myself having a reason to put the original version on with purpose, ever, unless Pearl Jam had come along to save this song.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time. I don't think I've ever gone to Spotify and said, play the J. Frank Wilson version, because this would be something like if I was in the car and listening to just regular radio, I would change the channel or change the station like that as soon as this came on.
Yeah. You're like driving through some city you've never been in or before, or whatever else. You're like, quick, Google what the alternative station is. Hopefully they're playing the Pearl Jam version right now.
Yeah.
And I will be interested to hear. I mean, of course, I always plug, hey, give us feedback. But which I usually don't have to plug people too much. But I'd be interested to know, like, do you think this auxiliary question off the top of my head here? Do you think, Dave? Do you think there's people that exist that truly do prefer the original? Like they've heard both and they just go, nope, you know what? That's the original's better.
I can't, and I'm sure I'm wrong because I usually am about things, but I can't imagine anyone under the age of 50 that would prefer the original version. I just had to look to make sure that J. Frank Wilson is dead, so he doesn't give you feedback. But unfortunately, he passed away, so he won't be writing in.
Well, if he did, it would be in the wrong tone anyways, right? It'd be all upbeat when he's trying to yell at us.
Yeah. Alcoholism and business stress. So unfortunately, he won't be calling in to say how much he prefers his version. But no, I can't see anybody under 50 saying, no, I really love the original for this reason or that reason.
Yeah. See, this for me, the Pearl Jam version is such a powerful rendition that, and I touched on this a little bit earlier, I feel like if you are a straight up non Pearl Jam fan, this is that song. Because even Creed, I use Creed as my punching bag all the time, but Creed has like a song or two that I'll hear in public that I'm like, oh, well, except for that song. I kind of like that song, right? I feel like this is that one for Pearl Jam. Like if you have a staunch Eddie Vedder hater, he's going to be like, well, yeah, except for Last Kiss though. You know what I mean? Like that's how good this cover is. So I believe we have beaten to death how much we love this song and this cover. Having said that, Dave, thank you so much. Well, first of all, actually, I want to step off, and I've said this to some other hosts, and I mean it when I say it. First of all, thank you so much for all of your support of the show. You've been a cheerleader for us. We try as much as we can to promote you prior to you joining the Odd Pods family, but it really, I know you know this as a content creator. Literally every comment, every like, every word of encouragement matters so much. And you've been a big cheerleader of ours for a long time. And so we thank you very much for that. And I try and line these, now that we're all fancy and we can do guest spots, I try and line these up with a good amount of time. And I ended up with a hole in my schedule. And I just got at you and said, hey man, I know this is last minute. And you're like, yeah, I'm on it. Which is awesome. So thank you for that. And one more time, if people are befuddled by the world of beer and they need it explained to them in a way that is not someone talking about the notes and the different flavor profiles and so on, and they just want to talk about good beer, where are they going to do that?
You could go to beerinfront.com. You could listen to the podcast. Beer in Front comes out every Wednesday on part of the Odd Pods family. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts. You could find me on YouTube. If you're ever coming to Chicago and you're like, oh, what are some good breweries to hit up? I have some information on my website, places to go to that are close to public transportation, or just hit me up. You could email me and I'll tell you places to go to, things like that, because there's a lot of craft beer quality in the city of Chicago. And I'm really excited about sharing that with anyone who wants to, listen or wants to explore more with the great breweries here.
Right on. Right on. So yeah, do that. The biggest thing we offer on this show, and I do this repeatedly, is I offer Michelle's home address or personal phone number for anybody who wants to talk to her about her opinions.
And where is Michelle? I'm here. Michelle is awesome. And there's no Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle is actually...
And it's not like she's going to even listen to this show to hear it.
I know. She's actually even down for the count, though. I'm kind of sad for her. She very much had a concert she was looking forward to going to last evening, the night before we were recording this, and she's so ill she can't even go to that. So I personally think that if a poor opinion of music could make you sick, that's probably what she got sick from. But, who's to say? So having said that, we greatly appreciate everybody coming to listen to us, and please, by all means, go and support Dave's show. And even if you don't even listen to 1 minute of his podcast, Dave is a man of his word. He will be more than happy to help you out if you have questions about where to go in Chicago or where to get good quality, honest to goodness beer. Next week on the program, as far as I'm aware, Michelle is returning to the show, and I sure hope she is, because it's going to be an album review next week, and Lord help me, it's going to be Michelle's pick for the album for us to review, and I am overly concerned with how that's going to go for me. But we will cross that bridge when we get to it. On behalf of myself and Dave, and of course, Michelle, like we always say about this time, without music, life would be a mistake. Bye.
Bye.
The Infectious Groove podcast is hosted by Russ Robinson, Kyle Wimple, and Michelle Koselecki. Produced and edited by Russ Robinson. Intro and outro music composed by Chris Kimmel. Recorded with a Rode Podcaster Pro and Rode Pod mics.